In previous video, we started with how to create a Phantom playbook using Python, right? Now, while doing that, we talked about this phantom.act method, which basically used to perform any actions on assets, right? And also we talked about different parameters this act method supports, right? And one of those parameters was the callback. So that is the topic of this particular video. So we will talk about what callback is and how to use this particular callback for performing some more action when this particular action is completed. Okay, so before that, so let me try to run this one first and see, so that we will basically, it will produce the same output whatever we have seen in the previous video. Then we will start with, so I'll be opening this debugger window as well. So I'll keep this two side by side, the playbook Python code and the debugger window, and we were working on the event ID 2 before, right? So I will stick to it. So I'll be clicking on test, and if you see it over here, like we were printing using this phantom.debug, we were printing the container and we were calling this phantom.act, which will basically perform this geolocate IP, okay, using the maxmind app. And that is what it is doing it over here, and it is giving you the result as well over here. If you see it, like, so this geolocate IP on asset maxmind completed with the status success, and then all this result details over here. If you see it, like what is the status, what is the actual message, like from where this IP belongs to or basically generates. So all this details it was giving me, right? Now what if I want to do some more stuff based on the IP of this particular geolocate IP? How I will do it, right? So there the concept of callback is coming into picture. So in the act method, if we remember from the previous video, in the act method there is a input or parameter called callback. So there you can give any method name which is callable method name. So that method will be called once this particular action is completed on all the assets given over here for all the input parameters. Because if you see, like we have just taken a very simple example of single IP address over here, but we can give multiple IP address over here as well, and we can perform this action on multiple assets as well over there, right? So once everything is completed, the callback will be getting called, and then it will perform the whatever code we'll be writing on that particular method. Okay, so we can over there we can do a lot of stuff, like we can call another action, we can call some custom functions, lot of stuff we can do over there. So let's try to take a simple example over here. So to create a callback method, so what we'll do it first is for this geolocate IP action, so we will pass another parameter called callback. So first, for that we need to edit the playbook first, then only we can edit this stuff. So then callback. Now in the callback we'll be giving a method name, okay, without any quotes or nothing. So let's give it a method name called geolocate underscore IP underscore CB for callback. Okay, so we need to basically create the body of this particular method. So I will keep this one a little bit this side. So now I will basically define a new method called this one. Now this is important stuff. So there is this, to make this particular method as a callback method, the signature of this method has to be a very specific one. So the callback method actually takes lot of arguments, and those arguments will be automatically populated by this action. So callback can be this callback, currently we are seeing it as a part of the act method. It can be called as a part of the playbook API as well, which we will see in later videos, or it can be called as a part of the custom function as well, which we will be seeing later as well. But currently we just learned about the act method, that's why you are covering the callback as a part of this act method only. Now this particular act method is acting on a lot of stuff, like this particular IP address, and by default it is basically working on the max mind asset as well. Okay, all these details, even it is generating a lot of outputs over here as well, right? We have seen that. So those details will be automatically available to this method. So that's why the signature of this method is important over here. Okay, so the first thing is the action. So by default it will be none, but whenever this particular guy will be called back, this method will be called back, so this action name, this geolocated IP, will be automatically passed over there as a input to this particular callback method, which we can use it for any purpose. Okay, we will try to do a debug as well for this one. Then the success. Now this is important, so by default value is none as well. Now success basically tells us whether this particular action has been successful or not. Now one thing we need to remember over here is, if we are performing this action for multiple assets, then it may happen that for a particular asset this action has been failed, but for other assets it is successful. Still the whole action will be considered as successful over there. Okay, so it will be considered fail only when it will be failed for all the assets over there. So that's the success. It will be either true or false. This value will be available to this particular method. Now the third one is the container. Okay, so if it is working on any kind of container, the called basically this particular action, so that container details will be available over here as well, because we have seen this was working on this particular container. So we will see this container is passed to this method over here as well. Okay, now the fourth one is the results. This is important. So by default we will be providing as none only. So whatever result this particular action has been created. So if I just show you over here the output we just saw, so this output, max mind completed with status, then action info, all these details will be, this context, this status, this message, everything will be available as a JSON object to this particular results input over here. Okay, the fifth one is the handle. Now I told you briefly about this handle. We will see one example as well in this particular video. So handle means if you are having some data which you want to pass to this callback method, you can pass it through a handle input. Okay, we will see an example of this one later. Now the fifth one is filtered artifacts. Okay, so filter artifacts, it is used only when if you are using this if else clause in that branching stuff, which we have not seen it and we have not implemented over here as well. So maybe that data will not be available over here as well. Okay, so it depends on like how the method, the action which is basically performing this particular callback is passing the details to over here to this method. Okay, and what is available to this method over here as well. Similarly, there is another input called filtered results, which we will be discussing later as well, and another input called custom function. Even this one will not be available for us as well. When we will be talking about the custom function, we will be revisiting this concept over here as well. Okay, so this is becoming my signature. Now what I'll do is, here I will just try to print this stuff. Okay, and then we will try to call the virus total IP reputation action to perform something on this particular callback method. So let's first debug all these things so that we will see what are the stuffs are available for us and what are not. So phantom.debug action, then I'll just quickly copy paste this stuff. Then for success, container, result, handle, filtered artifact, filtered result, and custom function. So this is for success, this is for the container, this is for the results, this is for the handle, this is for the filtered artifacts, filtered results, custom function. Okay, and we have for handle as well, which I have missed it. I will just print it over here, and for now I'll just write a return statement over here. Okay, and we will try to test it out. So I will save this one first. Here we will put a comment. So added callback method, some comments you need to put according to your need. So once the playbook is saved, what we'll do is we will try to test this one with the similar container ID. Okay, so if I just click on test over here, if you see, so the first, this on start called is coming from over here, then it has printed that particular container. Okay, then it has called this particular act method, which is completed over here. Then if you see it, if you see the logs over here, it will make more sense. So once this particular action has been completed successfully with this status success, then only its callback method is getting called over here. Okay, so this is important. Once this is completed, then only the callback method is getting called. Completed means it could be success, it could be failed as well over here, does not matter, but it needs to be completed, then only this callback method will be getting called. Now inside our callback method, we have just debug lot of stuff like action. If you see the action, whatever action we have performed over here as a where this callback method is getting called, that action details are getting printed as a JSON object. So if you need to use these details, you can use this action details over here as well, like the action name, the action run ID. This is the unique run ID. Using this one, we can get a lot of information about this particular action run and the name of it and the type of it over here. Okay, now if you see the second one we have printed is the success, which is basically true because this particular action is getting succeeded over here, right? Now then it has printed the container, the same container it has printed before because we were working on this particular container, so it has printed that one as well. This is important, as I said, the results. If you see, this whole result is available as a JSON array over here, correct? So like which action has been performed, the action details basically, then how many total objects has been, the summary details over here, the status, the actual message over here if you see it. Okay, the action results as well, the longitude, latitude, all these city details over here, then the message whatever we are seeing it in the output as well over there, and then the parameter whatever we have passed it to this particular method. So all these details are present as a part of this particular result object, result JSON object over here. Okay, so if you need to use any of this information, you can use it in this particular callback method as well to perform something else. Okay, we will see, like we will try to capture this IP address whatever we have used it over here from this result object and try to use it in a virus total call. Okay, now after results, the filtered artifacts, filtered results, nothing is available for us now. It's everything is none, even the custom function as well, even the handle we did not pass anything from this method to this method, so that's why handle is also none. Okay, we will see that one later, and then the other stuff like all the details of this particular playbook, and whenever it is finishing that one, it is calling this on finish and printing the details over here. Okay, so this is the basic stuff about the callback. So whenever this is getting completed, this callback you can call it with this particular signature details, and you can basically use this particular inputs to do some more stuff. So let us see that one now. Okay, so over here we will perform another action called the virus total. So for that, what I'll do is I will go to the virus total asset first. So from here I'll go to apps, and we already configured the virus total with our free account. If you have followed my videos on that one, so you can configure as well accordingly. So if I just click over here and click on the documentation, so this is my asset name, correct? And the action we'll be performing to over here today is called IP reputation, which we have seen it before as well. I just opened this one because I just need the actual action name over here, which is IP reputation, as well as the action parameter as well, which is a IP address over here. Okay. So what I'll do is I will go to this playbook. I will click on edit playbook again. So to go to the edit mode, then I will add a phantom.act because we wanted to perform a action over here. So that's why I am calling this phantom.act method over here, correct? So let me do this one and Control C, phantom.action. Now phantom.act. Now the action name we are trying to perform on the virus total is the IP reputation over here, correct? So copy, I will give the IP reputation over here. Now the parameters, the parameter name is IP address as we have seen it over here. Okay. Now as I told you, like this parameter we will try to capture from this results object over here, just to give you a notion like how you can use this particular data to for your own purpose. So if I just go back, so this is my result object, correct? So which is nothing but a JSON array over here if you see it. So I will just remove this IP address from here. So let us remove that and let us try to get that IP address over here from the result object. So results is the Python JSON object name. So now it has currently, if you see it's an array, right? And it has currently a single element because we have performed this particular action on a single asset with the single parameter. Okay. Now if you have performed this particular action on multiple assets, there would have been multiple entries to this particular result object over here. Okay. So for now we just have one. So I am just not looping through it and getting the results. I am just directly hard coding it over here. But generally in production scenario, maybe you will be having a lot of assets, but that particular action will be performed on. So then you may need to loop through it and then get the desired result over here. So it will be, as it is a single one, and it's an array first. So I am taking the first element. Then I am going to the action underscore results because the parameter is under this one, right? So I'll just copy it and I will give it over here because this is a dictionary, correct? So so after this one we are getting basically this particular stuff. So this is again an array. If you see, it is starting with this bracket, correct? So again, as it has a single entry because we have only single parameter we have passed it over here. So that's why I'm just taking the first element of this particular array, and then what I have to do is I have to take this parameters, correct? So I will just copy this one. I will give it over here, the parameters. Now under the parameters, it is the IP which we are bothering about now, correct? So this data we will be taking it. So I will just take the IP address over here. Okay. So we're just seeing like how we can use this particular result object for some other purpose in the callback method. Now if I just save it, let's give it a comment called added second action. Okay, so now our playbook is actually performing two action now. First action is the geolocate IP, and in the geolocate IP, once it is completed in its callback, we are actually performing another action called IP reputation over here. Okay, so I'll be clicking on save. Now before running this another thing is that we have actually copied from here, so we need to remove this one, otherwise it will again in this particular action call, it will call back the same guy again, so it will try to, it will be in the infinite loop. So we need to remove this callback method over here as well. Okay, so let's remove the second callback and added the second action. Okay, so let's save it and let's try to run this one again. So we will be using the same container ID over here. So let us test it out now. So if you see, like it is printing all this whatever debug statement we have given it over here. Now it also basically perform this IP reputation, IP underscore reputation or IP reputation action as well, you know, for this virus total asset, and it has given the details as well. And if you see it for this particular playbook, the total action it has executed is 2. One is this geolocate IP action. In its callback, it also performed this IP reputation action from the virus total or for the virus total asset over here. If you see for MaxMind, it has performed the geolocate IP. For the virus total, it has executed the IP reputation over here. Okay, so that's how this particular callback works as well over here. Okay, now let's say if you are defining some variables or some data which you need to pass it to this callback method, so how we will be doing it? So let's say I have, okay, we need to go to edit playbook first. So let's say I am just giving you a very simple example. Let's say I have giving a variable called name over here. Okay, and it could be any Python object. It could be a number, string, or it could be a dictionary as well. Any Python object, you can pass it as a handle over here. So let's say my container name, let's say I'm defining a dictionary called name. The variable is name, and let's say my name is something. Okay, my container name over here, some Python object, so it could be anything over here. Now how I will pass this guy to this callback? So what I'll be doing it first is in that particular act method, which is having a callback method. So I'll be passing this variable in the handle method, handle input over here. Okay, so in the handle I am passing this name over here. So this particular name will be available for as this handle over here. So if we are printing it this one, so let's see whether we are able to get these details over here or not. So I will save it. I will give it a comment called added handle, save it, and then I will just test it over here. If you see, like here, correct, so the handle is the last one we are printing it over here before calling this particular IP reputation. So it is able to print the JSON object, or basically the Python dictionary, which we have created in the on_start method, where we are performing the actual geolocate IP action over there. Okay, then passing this particular data as a handle to this callback method over here. Okay, so this is how the callback works in Python playbook, basically in Phantom playbook. So hopefully this video was helpful. See you in next video.